fall under that. Very few times do they get put forward in some of these stories in terms of being the central thing. And then trafficking as well is also an underreported sort of topic. So with our journalists, what we've been trying to do is make sure that the stories that are being told around this are evidence-based, not going into emotionalisms, to try and make sure that we can make some impact and make sure that people pay attention to it. And I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Naima, Shelleen, and Mariana. So I'll just get into it. The last 2 weeks we've talked about prevention, okay? So, and today we are talking about protection, okay? So I'm going to start with Shelleen, because I know you have worked a lot in this area of protecting children from being trafficked. So can you just tell us, what does protecting children, what does this P actually mean?
Protecting children against trafficking really means that we need to actually take care of them physically, from home, from where they are playing, from where they are going to school, fetching water, and all around. It's generally protecting a child. So when we say that we are protecting children against trafficking, then we are talking about making sure that our children are actually in the right places at the right time and doing the right things that they're supposed to be doing. So when we think about our children generally, we have to make sure that they are protected from any bad thing that would happen to them. And this also, trafficking falls into any issue that would actually avoid them from growing as children and then become victims of trafficking.
Thank you, Shelleen. You're protecting them from becoming victims of being trafficked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So probably we'll come back this about the different levels of protection, like physical, psychological, and all that. Probably we can prepare for that. But I'll go to Mariana. Mariana, what does protection mean? Protecting children from being trafficked. What does that mean? What are those steps that we can take to ensure that children are being protected from being trafficked? Mariana, you're muted.
Sorry, I would be keen to look at child protection from the angle of children's rights. Every human being has rights accorded to them, and when a specific or a particular right is denied to a child, then that child is in danger, and some of the dangers that they are open to is being trafficked. And when I say rights, I look at different rights, like the right to freedom, because some of child trafficking goes hand in hand with labor, child labor. Right to education, because when a child is trafficked, they may not have access to education, right to health, right to a lot of things, including even the right to privacy and the right to have a name, because sometimes the right to an identity, because sometimes when these children are not in the right place and they're trafficked, they change identities and they lose their original innate identity. So I will look at it in terms of ensuring that a child has all the rights that are accorded to them. And if we look at it again from an extended point of view, I firmly believe that the best place for a child to thrive is to be at home or within specific care that is available and realistic at that point. So I would summarize by saying child protection or guarding against child trafficking would be enabling children to have all the rights that they are accessible to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. Naima, I'll come to you. I know probably you do not have the direct contact with children, don't work directly with children, but I know you understand what protection means, protecting children from being trafficked, what that means. What does that mean?
I think I think the most important part of this particular conversation is making sure that, especially for the journalists, as they're telling these stories, which are very, very important, that they're not, one, re-traumatizing the children, or two, putting out information out there that puts the children at risk. And this especially is important when you have cases of child sex trafficking and that kind of thing happening. If reporting is not done correctly and the child is not centered and protected, it means then it then becomes a salacious sort of piece of reporting, which takes away from the story. So I think it means remembering that this child that you're writing about as a journalist is a child. They have, and I think Jenny, you mentioned this at one of the trainings that we've had before, that this child has to live with the consequences of your stories for the rest of their lives. So how you present these stories and how you protect these children is remarkably important. So telling their stories, but also protecting them, protecting their identities, protecting their parents, protecting their communities, without necessarily taking away from the story. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Naima. So I will start again. I'll go back to Shelleen, and the question is how do we start protecting children from being trafficked? Because I don't think a trafficker wakes up in the morning and they say, "Today I'm going to traffic 3 children." What is in the head of a trafficker when they are trafficking children? What is that in the head of it, Shelleen?
When a trafficker comes to take a child, first what they think about is first making money. So because trafficking is actually, it's about making money. So the first thing that they think about is, if I traffic these children, then money. But then when we come to protection, the first thing that we think about is to timely identify children, like to timely know that these children are victims of trafficking, and we need to actually get them very quickly so that before the trafficker can take them. So that with child protection, we need to place them in a safe environment to make sure that these children that have actually been maybe victims, or children that have been not yet victims, should be placed into a safe environment to avoid the traffickers from taking them or actually trafficking them. And then providing them with social services that they need as children. This will help them this will help them not being trapped, because then if you provide with the services that they need, and you're actually protecting them so well that the traffickers will not be able to reach them. And then we also need psychosocial support for the children. In this way, we support them psychologically. We talk to them that don't speak to maybe strangers. This way you protect them and involve them to know that if a stranger came around, then you're not safe. So you need to move away, because traffickers usually carry them away with different deceiving them, promising them sweets and all that the children need. So when we are protecting the children from being trafficked, then we talk to them well and also prepare them psychologically so that we are actually supporting them. And then in case we get a survivor or a victim of trafficking, then we still have to put this child in a safe environment so that we also talk to them and give them psychological support. And also in case that you have a victim of trafficking as a child, reintegration is very important at that point. If you think it is in the best interest of the child, then you can easily integrate them back. But if it's not yet the best interest for the child, then you can reintegrate the child back into the community or the family, in case maybe the trafficker is still around, or you haven't found him, because usually traffickers are disguised themselves as high. So back to your question, what usually the traffickers have in their mind to take the children away is to get money, and also because the children are really young and very vulnerable, they are easily deceived and taken away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shalene. So, Mariana, I know you work in the media space in terms of using technology and the social media space to be able to protect children, basically. So, I want you to take me through the mind of a trafficker. Okay, so like, how do we, when the trafficker is, and here I want you to please bring in issues of online. And right now, because of COVID-19, we have lots of children online and also a lot of predators online. So like, what is the process? What is in the process of someone who is approaching a child, because you deal with missing children all the time. So what is the mind of the person who is taking away a child from their family?
Thank you. Traffickers are predators, and they specifically turn the vulnerability or the desperation of their victims, which are children, into big business. So there's demand and supply. And for this, it is a business that is also taken care of the way we would take care of our other businesses. And for the demand and supply bit, this trafficker needs to have a child to supply to the market that they need. And so the same way, I'm trying to equate it to the way we have a business where you are selling tomatoes. Then you plant these tomatoes and you're able to water them until they're ready to be taken to market. So it's the same way that this trafficker would have a relationship or implant themselves in certain environments where they're able to groom these vulnerable children. Sometimes it thrives in terms of conflict or crisis or economic hardships, where you would be able to, the trafficker would be able to implant themselves in an environment where they know that the parents of this child or even this child need 1, 2, 3 things in terms of monetary rescue. If it is in times of conflict or crisis, this predator or the trafficker would implant themselves in a place where they are selling safety. And so if it's also in terms of still crisis, they would be looking at getting, using fear or gain. If you're told, if you do not give me your child for 1, 2, 3, then this will happen to the rest of you, you will give your child. If you're told that I will take your child to the city and I will have them help me in the house and for some time you will get money back, then you will give your child. So the predator's mind comes from a point of exploiting the vulnerability and desperation of the victims and their families. And for me, the key thing here is we need to build a community of creating prevention awareness, making everybody aware that not all forms of child trafficking include grab and go. Some forms of child trafficking have been sanitized and accepted in our society to the point that if you try to cut in and put a story towards it as a journalist, you'd be told, but this person has been here. They have started a children's home in this community for the last 10 years. They've been helping us. But then this person is trafficking children within their orphanage. So to me, that is how I think the mind of a predator and that environment works. And in terms of also on the online space, when you asked about that, Jennifer, taking advantage of the vulnerability and desperation of the victims, the vulnerability of a child is their mindset or them to think through a concept up until the end, of course, has its age-based limitations. And so if a child is online, again, like I said, this predator would be creating a long-term relationship with them, trying to create a bond with them that by the time they are selling to them that I will give you something better, then this child is already comfortable with the predator. Thank you.